Hello EFD squad and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. It's Friday, baby. That can only mean one thing. We're wearing green because we don't present in front of a green screen on Fridays. Bit of an oversight though, because we are doing hot takes. So good luck watching my floating big fat Harry Maguire head. Joining me, as always, it's Joseph Tomlinson. It's Patrick Van Straten. What are you doing this weekend? You know, anything exciting?
Go
on, mate.
Get me a haircut because my Barnett's an absolute joke.
Yeah, dead trim. What are you saying?
I'm going down to the south coast. I might swim in the sea.
Doing something cultured?
Nah, just staying with the wife's family.
Locked in, married. Anyway, first question comes from Ali Zubairi 3, and he's asked: are Atletico Madrid now on the same level with PSG, Barca, Juve, City, and Bayern Munich?
A lot of teams there.
Now, that probably a little bit too far, but let's have a look at how La Liga is shaping up next year, because of course they split Real Madrid and Barcelona for the first time in yonks last season, finishing second on 79 points. Since the first time since 2013-14, in fact. And I think they could do it again, particularly over Real Madrid. I'll discuss why after, because I want to hear your thoughts first and foremost, gentlemen, because that's what a discussion is, you know? I want to know, Patrick Van Straten, do you think they have a credible shot at La Liga title?
Yeah, definitely.
Broken English there from me, but whatever.
When you look at the squad, like, I think that it's arguably much stronger than the 13-14 one. You know, then they were relying on kind of getting some minutes out of Adrian Lopez, Raul Garcia. They had David Villa, who was obviously very old at that point. So I think that this version of them, this iteration, is actually quite interesting. Gelson Martin's coming in on a free. That gives them a different sort of weapon. Though I don't think he's Carrasco's level. I think he's still quite raw. Rodri, fantastic signing. It was time to move Gabi on. Lamar, he's going to be good for them. They overpaid a bit, but that doesn't necessarily matter on the field. And the defence, as always, is just pretty solid. Last season, they were a little bit underwhelming. Last season, their attack wasn't quite gelling. Diego Costa was a little bit lacklustre when he came back, but maybe that was a fitness thing or a match fitness thing. So I think with a full pre-season behind him, they could be a real thorn in the side of the big sides. Real Madrid are obviously in a transitional year. We're going to go on to talk about that, I imagine. And Barcelona still have some, I think, gaping holes in their squad. So if Atleti are going to do it, they should do it now.
Joe, thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Pato. It is a big year for Diego Simeone. I don't know how much longer he's going to be at the club if he doesn't win it this year, I think. Although the securing Griezmann maybe means that he might stay a little bit longer than the first four. I think Real Madrid are going to struggle this year quite badly.
Badly? Strong words.
I know. I mean, last season they actually had the lowest points tally, didn't they, since I believe 2006, 2007, so over a decade. I also think they scored one of the lowest amount of goals, sub 100 it was, in the league. So I'm a bit worried about them, especially losing Cristiano Ronaldo. I believe that he's been responsible for nearly 40% of their goals since 2009, 36%, something like that. So that is a massive void to sell, especially with Benzema ageing, Gareth Bale's fitness concerns kind of still hanging around him a little bit. Not quite as bad as they were maybe a couple of seasons ago, but the pressure on the Welshman this year is going to be immense, especially when you look at Karim Benzema's output significantly dropping off over the last few years and Vinicius Junior's signing being a massive risk. I mean, they haven't effectively signed a player to replace Ronaldo, have they? It's almost as if they're saying, Gareth, you're going to step up and fill that mantle. And to ask a player with Gareth Bale's injury history to do that, I think is a huge risk.
Still contributing to 0.5 goals every time he plays, isn't he?
For sure, but are you expecting him to play 40 games a season?
Yeah, probably not. I think, in their current form, Atletico Madrid are very well placed to finish second, but have the transfers they've made so far enough to claw 14 points back on Barcelona. And Barcelona, I do anticipate them being better in Valverde's second season. Maybe the numbers were a little bit deceiving because I think they were still conceding around 12 shots on goal per game.
Do we expect them to go unbeaten until the last week?
In 38. I mean, they nearly went unbeaten, yes, but they did it in... I mean, to say they did it in an underwhelming fashion is maybe doing them a little bit of a disservice.
Ugly
but there's obvious areas for improvement, and they have improved said areas. I think Lenglet coming in, Longlet is a very savvy signing. £32 million looks like great business. Big fan of his, super composed defender, very positive with his distribution as well. I think from his sort of 50 passes a game, 40 go forwards. So the comparisons with PK are sort of justified in his playing style. I like the way that he uses that quite cultured left foot of his as well to step out of defence quite bravely. I remember him playing against Barcelona last season and sending Rakitic for an absolute hot dog. So super composed. I mean, that's a great signing. I think they've signed a more sort of talented Brazilian in Arthur as opposed to Vinicius Junior. He's much closer to the finished article, isn't he? I thought he was better for Gremio than Vinicius Junior was last season for, I want to say, Flamengo.
Yeah, Flamengo.
6 goals and 3 assists Vinicius Junior got, whereas Arthur, obviously, part of that Copa Libertadores winning side. And they've just signed Malcolm. And while that puzzles me, they've signed 3 very talented players there. And Lenglet's the oldest.
Does mean they have to sell one. They have to now
for
sell
115. Well, we're going to move on to the whole Ousmane Dembele thing a little bit later because that's another question and I think well worth talking about, elaborating on. But yeah, Atletico Madrid, I think that there's obvious areas for improvement as well, and Tamar Lamar and Gelson Martins will help. I agree with you in that I was watching some highlights of Martins, and while his dribble numbers are great, 2.6 a game, while he puts in 1.5 key passes a game, his end product when he does get to the byline and when he does work his way past this man is very, very mixed, right?
Yeah.
So his crossing, which was surprisingly low per 90, it was like 0.5, maybe successful crosses per 90. But that number's always a little bit tenuous, isn't it? What do you define as a cross? A lot of the time, not quite sure. But I think hopefully that will help Atletico have more shots in the box. They were having 5.9 last season, which was half that of Real Madrid. But Real Madrid shot monsters in the league, and Ronaldo was taking third off their shots. So I think Atletico Madrid have strengthened, maybe not significantly, because they are losing a bit of experience. Gabi's left, right, and has Gabi gone?
Yeah.
Has that been verified? But Real Madrid, yeah, more questions than answers. And we've kind of debated this on Sunday Vibes, so maybe let's not go into it in too great detail. But how do you replace Ronaldo? Because it looks like they're going with the tact of splitting those goals across 2 or 3 players, right, as opposed to finding another monstrous number 9.
Well, it seems like they've not been rejected necessarily by Eden Hazard, but I saw a report today that Eden Hazard, after speaking with Maurizio Sarri quite heavily, is now quite keen to stay at Chelsea this season for at least 1 more year. It probably does mean that Courtois is going to go, but again, that deal is being held up by the fact that they can't get a replacement. Chelsea, they're struggling to anyway. We want Kasper Schmeichel, but Leicester are going to ask for massive amounts of money, just like they have done for Harry Maguire. And I'm not sure Chelsea are going to pay it. So unless they can get a replacement, they might miss out on Thibaut Courtois. So it's not even necessarily just Ronaldo. That's Ronaldo's exit they need to replace. They're obviously chasing a second striker in Eden Hazard. They're obviously chasing another goalkeeper. They might miss out on both of those players. So they could be 2 signings off the pace of where they want to be, particularly when he kicks off the season.
Well, I think they're more than that in attack. But the thing about Real Madrid is even if you take Ronaldo's goals out of the side, they still score a lot of goals and they're still going to win the vast majority of their games. They're still going to have enough to steamroll most clubs in La Liga. The question is obviously, what they do in the tight matches and whether they want to give up competitiveness with Barcelona in El Clasico, give up competitiveness with Atleti in the Madrid derby. Like those are the games where that will make the difference, and certainly in the Champions League, the loss of Ronaldo. But overall, they can get people in who will certainly be sufficient to make them beat most teams in La Liga. The question is whether Real Madrid are going to go about their squad building in a kind of intelligent, rational way, or whether they're going to go and just try and get the biggest name they can, which sometimes is the smart thing to do, but in this case might not be.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Atletico Madrid. I think Gelson Martinez on a free might be the best bit of business this summer that I've seen, especially as Sporting quoted Liverpool at €100 million for him and then rejected a 30 million bid from Arsenal in the midst of that sort of contract dispute. And he's a player that excites me greatly. Tamar Lamar, be interesting to see how he does on the other flank. But who do you think's conducted better business than Barcelona or Atletico Madrid? Because
definitely not Barcelona. I think Barcelona's business has been average to poor.
Really?
Yeah,
I
man.
disagree.
It hasn't really addressed that.
I think they've got massive areas. PK 31, they now have to sell Yerry Mina unless Philippe Coutinho's Portuguese passport gets confirmed by the end of the week. So Yerry Mina's almost definitely going to have to leave the club.
Yeah, but they always find a way with that sort of stuff, don't they?
Well, you say that. They've had to sell the last 3 Brazilians they've signed, haven't
It
they?
wouldn't be the worst case scenario selling Yerry Mina, would it?
Getting Lenglet in is
but then you look at
is good. And Malcolm's a good player, but Malcolm's essentially an inferior.
But
Ousmane
the
Dembele.
signing of Lenglet still means they've only got 3 centre-backs at the club, and one of them's Thomas Vermaelen.
Oh, they've got 4 centre backs. They've got Umtiti, Piqué, Lenglet, and Vermaelen. They do have one more. But like Arthur, we have literally no idea what Arthur will be.
Like it's also very good.
It's extremely difficult to tell what a player will be like coming out of the Brazilian league. And Malcolm, it just seems like it's addressing an area of, I don't know. It seems like their priorities are wrong.
They just
I think
don't
they need
seem
to
to
sort
have,
their midfield out.
Yeah, I completely agree. They don't seem to have addressed the fact that Sergio Busquets is ageing. They don't seem to have addressed the fact that they've lost Andres Iniesta. And I know they've kind of bigged up Coutinho to potentially be the man who can slot in and play a slightly more reserved role than he's used to in that Iniesta style. But I think Coutinho is going to want to play and is much better playing higher up the pitch, closer towards the goal.
But even if Coutinho does play that Iniesta role, then the 2 people around him need to be doing an awful lot of defensive work and essentially deal with the kind of lion's share of ball movement. And Busquets has had a bit of a rough last 18 months. I think that we're starting to maybe see some decline from him. Arthur, like we say, might be good, might be bad. If he's good, though, it might take a while for him to be good. And Rakitic, for whatever reason, Valverde last season didn't seem like he could make up his mind about how good Rakitic was. So unless their plan is to keep Rafinha this season or maybe move Sergio Roberto permanently into midfield, which I think would be a perfectly workable solution, they need to kind of address that issue. Bringing Malcolm in seems like a really strange one to me. But
yeah, I also think... Yeah, I mean, the return of Thiago Alcantara would offset
that would be class
of issues they're
sure.
currently having, and much more financially viable than someone like Verratti they've pursued as a long-time replacement for sort of maybe Xavi / Iniesta.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think? Who will win La Liga next year? Vote in the poll above. Who are we going for, boys? I'm going for, same as this year, Barca, Atleti, Real Madrid. Top 3.
Ooh, I'm going to go for Atleti, Barca, Real Madrid.
yeah, I think Barca will probably win it, then Atleti, then Real.
Okay. Let us know in the poll, like I said. Next question. Next question before we dive into quick fire questions is from Ali Abdullah, and he has sent in over Twitter. Now that Barcelona bought Malcolm, what does that mean for the future of Dembele at the club? Now, before we answer this, get your questions in for next week on Twitter, handles appearing below, and in the comments below. And you'll get a shout out if it gets used, of course, the least we can do. Gentlemen, I think we're all of the same thought when we kind of frame Malcolm as an inferior Ousmane Dembele in every single way. This move has almost been as puzzling as their pretty relentless pursuit of Willian from Chelsea as well.
Horrible pursuit.
So what is it at Barcelona wherein the management team feel like they need more wide talent?
Do you want to take it
Well,
back?
you can understand them needing good backups, right? Like when you look at Barcelona's backups last season and you're seeing like Deulofeu, you're seeing Paco Alcácer. Paco's pretty good. But then guys like Denis Suarez, then you actually think, yeah, Barcelona do need some elite replacement level players in this team. But the thing about Malcolm and Ousmane is they don't even play in the same position anyway. Ousmane Dembele can play on both sides, but he's played pretty much exclusively on the left at Barcelona because, of course, Messi wants to play off the right. Malcolm plays off the right as well because he's extremely left-footed. What this suggests to me is that they are going to be thinking about a Barcelona attack in the post-Luis Suarez world. Like I think at points this season, I would expect to see Suarez benched or rested, and they'll play maybe Messi as an out-and-out 9 like he played under Tata Martino, and we will see Malcolm playing on the right and Ousmane Dembele playing on the left. Like Malcolm, as much as Malcolm is nowhere near on the same level as Ousmane Dembele as a prospect, he is still an excellent prospect. He will still probably turn out to be a very good player, especially playing with those guys. But he plays in Messi's position. Yeah. Like there's absolutely no way he's taking that. And he and Ousmane Dembele will not be competing for that left side role. You're not going to play a left winger, a left-footed player on the left at Barcelona. They simply don't do that. So I don't know. I think that he's going to be a rotation player, and he'll be a good rotation player. and it will allow them to rest Suarez for the big games and try and get back to the top of the Champions League, and it will allow them to have a look at what their team could be.
So do you think that means playing Messi as a false nine in the hole where Suarez is? Because who's going to play in that Suarez position?
A more traditional nine.
Yeah, I'd say like under Martino, he didn't play as a false nine. He played just as a poacher, kind of like that season with Wayne Rooney, where Wayne Rooney played as a pure number 9 and got like 26 goals in the league or something. Like Messi was actually amazing at that role, and you can see now Messi is still kind of. He's still like unbelievable in the things he can do, but he is getting closer to mortal, right, with each passing year. So at the World Cup, if it had been 2 years ago, he might have been able to cover for some of those problems in that Argentina setup. But at the World Cup, there was just simply too much for him to do. He had to beat too many guys. And Barcelona don't actually have to worry about him doing that. They can create a system which allows Messi to do the stuff that he does best, which is find scoring positions and score.
Because we've spoken about in the past, haven't we, of the potential of Lionel Messi dropping into the midfield roles and how good he is and how adept he is and how amazing his passing range is in that role. So I don't know whether they're going to drop Luis Suarez that much. I just the Malcolm transfer just stinks of dodgy business to me. I don't know.
Really?
They
didn't overpay for him.
You've gone full
It's really
panorama
odd about
in
it.
pre-season. Paulinho, Malcolm.
No, for sure.
But
for sure.
Paulinho makes
maybe
sense.
a little bit.
That shit stings. But like Malcolm, when you look at the cost of Malcolm, like that seems reasonable for a talent of his.
No, I kind of agree. But what was with the triple pursuit of Willian to the cost of £60 million? That to me seems odd when Malcolm is available.
Was more perplexing to me.
That would also, in the same way that Malcolm facilitates a change in system, Willian can play a right wing back, can't he, as well? Maybe that was their thinking. Maybe they weren't going to play a flat 4-4-2. Maybe they were going to play a 3 at the back, and it might have been Lenglet, PK, and TT. I'm not sure, but
I think it's odd because I think the pursuit of Willian means that they were willing to pay £60 million for him, which effectively means he was going to start for Barcelona. They were not going to pay 60 for a
million
rotation.
Guarantees you a start now in the Barca setup.
You don't? But you think Malcolm will start on the right-hand side?
I don't think Malcolm will start, and I think it's I think he's been ill-advised going to Barcelona. I think Roma would have been the perfect place for him to develop, alongside other prodigious young talents, Kluivert, Schick. Who else have they got?
Well, did you watch the interview with Monchi?
I did watch Cengiz Under. I did watch the interview with Monchi, and it was pretty much signed on the dotted line until Bordeaux realised they could get an extra $6 million out of Barcelona.
But even then,
I think Malcolm was just, as soon as he knew Barcelona were in the mix, I don't think he thought about it really.
But that interview, obviously they're now suing Barcelona and Bordeaux.
They're pursuing
pursuing
possibility,
legal options.
I think that's silly.
Which I think is a bit of a backlash.
I think what is a little bit odd about the transfer, if you haven't seen the Monchi video, then I recommend going and watching it. He basically talks through. Yeah, he basically talks through the inner workings of the transfer and how he'd agreed with Barcelona. With Bordeaux, he'd agreed with the player, he'd agreed with the agent. The player was desperate to come to Roma. The agent wanted to make the transfer happen. Roma offered in the second offer after Barcelona initially come in, offered more. Bordeaux agreed to the secondary fee that they were happy to take more money for Malcolm.
There was a point
where Roma were offering more money than Barcelona were. And then they just stopped taking the calls. They basically said, no, you're going to have to pay even more to get Malcolm. Monchi kind of just went, you know what, we're not willing to deal if you're going to be like this. Pulled the plug on the transfer, and Malcolm ended up at Barcelona. But for me, the Malcolm transfer is just extremely puzzling. I know that he's going to be played on that right, or at least being used as a right winger to cut inside with that hammer of a left foot he's got. But I don't think Valverde... I just don't see Valverde like moving Messi into the out-and-out 9 at the rotation of Luis Suarez because of Malcolm.
I mean, he's stuck by Luis Suarez when he had a stinker at the start of the season. So
Suarez feels to me like his boy.
There's clearly a trust
Valverde
there,
boy,
and he does defend from the front, and he does do sort of a lot of Messi's running where Messi's quite passive during the game before he kind of switches it on. But I think that. When you've got that abundance of forward talent, like you said, that kind of, like Pato said, that 4-3-3 can't be out of the equation. And there's areas of Malcolm's game that are very Barcelona, aren't there? And which I love. He's a little bit like Gelson Martinez. He completes almost 3 dribbles a game, like more twist and turn than a freaking doorknob. But I do think I could easily see him moving on next season after not getting much game time, which isn't like wholly analytical, but what is Malcolm, 21, 22?
I think he's 21.
I feel like at his age and with his trajectory, this might not be, like I've said before, the best move for him personally. But
when Barcelona come calling, though, it's very hard to say no.
And I think Barcelona will always have minutes. You know, like Asensio wasn't a guaranteed starter for Real Madrid this season, but he's still got plenty of minutes. And between all the competitions, which they're expected to go pretty deep in, he will get to play quite a lot. I guess you can make the argument though that like he would have played more at Roma. That might have made sense, or he could have maybe gone to a club with a better coach in terms of developing young players. But overall, yeah, I think that for a lot of Brazilians, they just hear the name Barcelona and
bang, go on.
and they want to go, and you can understand that as well. If they let Ousmane Dembele go, it'd be insane.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've discussed this before, where Ousmane Dembele would go, haven't we? So maybe that's not worth venturing into.
Yeah, at the sacrifice of Ousmane Dembele, it's mental business.
And just to emphasise how two-footed he is, we pulled out a great stat, didn't we, on a scout report, wherein I think he's taken 120-something career shots so far, and it's pretty much 60 on the left foot, 60 on the right foot.
Yeah, there's that great interview of him as well, wasn't it, where they're like,
and players
what
like
foot
that
are you? And he goes, I don't know.
Yeah. So he's definitely got the higher ceiling. But imagine Barcelona's shot numbers when Coutinho and Malcolm are both in the same side. Just raining down shots from everywhere, 30 yards
None
plus.
of them from inside the box.
No one's safe, yeah. Does this mean the end for Ousmane Dembele? We don't think so, do you? Let us know in the comments below. Very puzzling times. Time for quick fire questions then, gentlemen. First one comes from Adam Gimblett, and he has asked, who would be a viable replacement for Mourinho at United? A lot of people seem to be of the opinion that third season syndrome is going to kick in once more. It's inevitable, and he will part ways, mainly fueled by that photo with his top off. You do tell me that's from the season before, but he looks like he's having a meltdown.
Yeah.
Either way, let's just answer the question. I think he's going to stick this season out. That's my two penneth. But Joe, if he was to leave, who would be the likely candidates?
I think there's one name that probably is at the head of the pack, which is Zinedine Zidane. I think Zinedine Zidane fits the profile of a Manchester United manager pretty well. I think he's a big enough name to appease the promotional and commercial side of the club. Ed Woodward, of course, is desperate to sign Galacticos, and he is effectively the ultimate Galactico manager, isn't he, right now on the scene. Also, I don't think he'd do a bad job at United. I'd be
you
quite
sound displeased at the
I wouldn't be displeased. I'd be quite happy to have Zinedine Zidane at Manchester United. Yes, it might be a risk. We know we've spoken about it plenty of times in the past about his managerial style and how he gets the best out of his players through man management. But you know what? At times that was Sir Alex Ferguson's greatest trait. So I'd be quite happy to see Zidane at Man United. It'd be fun.
Fascinating.
It'd be f***ing fun.
It'd be really interesting.
Or Conte. Have we discussed Conte at United?
Oh, well, Conte would probably be the best. He's like the best available manager right
Yeah.
now, isn't he? But
again, United have had, in a similar way to Jose, he's quite pragmatic, a bit of a dickhead behind the scenes, and you expect him to come in and be successful.
United make a rod for their own back though by having this they're really fixated on this idea of what United should be. And I think that often that holds you back as a side if you're finding a new manager.
But they moved away from that when they've still got Jose.
Similar to Real
to a
at the
certain
moment,
extent,
in terms of placing Ronaldo, a bit hamstrung by this kind of perceived identity, so they want to go out and buy the superstar.
But the perceived identity,
but it makes
instead of buying youngsters.
It makes sense to think, right, well, we need to replace superstar output, so like how are we going to do that? And it might be more economical to buy one player rather than buying multiple players. Like I understand that to some extent, and that's been the case with them for 20 years. But with United, it's stylistic. It's like, oh, well, we always play this way. We always have to play attacking football. And so, for instance, you wouldn't go for a Simeone or a Jardim, even if they're the good managers available.
I think we would
because you have this idea that you need to attack a lot.
Are you saying that Real Madrid are more sensible than Manchester United at this current moment in time?
I think that Real Madrid's...
They definitely are, by the way.
I think Real Madrid's policy makes more sense than Man United's does when it comes to replacing Ronaldo.
United are literally throwing at a wall.
United just need to
If
think
I hear
it
a
out.
United fan say flying wingers one more time, my head will come clean off.
They've got so much money.
So many forwards.
And they've got so much money. They've got every resource you could possibly want. They can compete with Man City. And then when you look at the squads, you're like, Jesus Christ, like, how has this happened?
The depth in your front line is unbelievable. Like, if you were just to tighten it up defensively and had a defender who could distribute, we discussed this, then if Mourinho can't win a title with this current squad, he's never going to win a Premier League again. and he will have to.
Yeah, but he is against
Italy
one of the
and probably
greatest
win
teams
the
in Premier
treble
League
next
history.
year.
He is
What?
against one of the greatest teams in Premier League history.
Sure. But it's more. I wouldn't say it's if he can't win it with this team. I'd say it's if he can't win it with this club. Like this club has everything he could possibly want, and yet he's built a kind of team, in my view. There's a lot of talent in it, but it is pretty. Like I think
you're talking more what system than personnel.
No, I'm talking personnel.
Personnel-wise,
comparatively to
City.
Relative to Man City, the personnel are far, far below what City have.
Yeah.
Like even just look at the fullbacks. Like it's unbelievable, really. Like
How many United players other than De Gea get in that City team?
But City have also the lowest average age. Like a lot of these players this time last year wouldn't have necessarily been guaranteed starters in the Manchester United team. People like Leroy Sané, people like Bernardo Silva doesn't necessarily start, does he? Edison, Pep Guardiola has just galvanised them. They've become superstars under his stewardship. And why can't the same happen of Anthony Martial under Jose Mourinho at Manchester United?
Because he's under Jose Mourinho.
So again, we're going back to not personalise the manager and the style that he's enforcing.
That's still one guy. I mean, like City, when City have like Sané, Sterling, and Silva to choose from, and United have Martial and Rashford, that there is a massive difference between those as options. Like Sané, I do think was a superstar a year ago, and he was certainly like a huge prospect coming out of Germany. But like I understand what you're saying in the sense that like Mourinho is responsible for the squad he has, and if this is the squad he's chosen to have, then he should be able to win with it. Or he should be building a different squad. That's my feeling with Mourinho.
And that's fair. But I think the two players you've mentioned there, like Rashford and Sterling, look at their sort of trajectory in the last kind of 12 months they've had, and I think they were a lot closer 12 months ago. And I imagine if Rashford was to play under Pep Guardiola, his output would be
crazy. Yeah,
similar.
There's a big
to
age
Raheem
difference
Sterling.
between those two.
Honestly, I think Raheem Sterling has a higher ceiling, and I rate him more so as a player. But I think we should probably cut quick fire questions in half because we didn't answer them very quickly, did we? But I enjoyed that debate, gentlemen. Last one. What is the most magical moment you've experienced as a football fan?
Jesus.
Let's end on something heartwarming before.
Have we not done this before?
Personal questions. Probably.
Mine could be updated though.
Should we axe that? Should we
Mine-
axe that?
okay.
Yeah, I think we've
Let's
done
axe
that.
it.
two or
All right,
three
last
times.
one then is going to be, who do you think is going to make the most significant move up or down the table in the Premier League this season? Probably a better one. Good decision.
Um,
I think Burnley will slip. I think Bournemouth are relegation
Burnley are
candidates.
definitely going to slip. Yeah.
Burnley, well done Aberdeen. Decent 1-1 against Burnley that was. I know I've dug out the rest of the SPFL in Europe, so I just thought I'd slip that in there. But Burnley overperformed massively, didn't they, last season?
Yeah, Burnley.
Wolves. A lot of people in the tweet I put out for hot takes this week think that Wolves stand an outside chance of Europa League football. Are we getting carried away
Yes.
with Wolves, or
Yes.
do you see any credence to that?
No, we are getting carried
Do you
away
any
with
credence
Wolves.
to that? Yeah?
Yes.
You bloody picked Barry Douglas as your first.
I know,
as
that
your
was a
bargain buy in
disaster,
12th
wasn't it?
man.
He
Go and
left.
watch that, by the way.
No, look, Wolves have assembled a decent squad and have a very good manager for their level, but let's not expect great things out of them in their first season in the Premier League
Not
with
on
that
Leicester's
squad
level, are
that's
they?
very young.
Which is 8th.
Yeah, I think they're still a way off Leicester.
They've probably got a better attack than Leicester, as in a deeper one. Like I'm not sure that Raul Jimenez is going to score as many goals as Vardy, but like once you, I don't know, Leicester still need to replace Mahrez.
All of those Wolves players, it's their first season in the Premier League. Like Jota, Jimenez,
Neves.
They've played in the Champions
young,
League, though. I mean,
but
they've played in
young
La Liga.
players. I think it's a lot to ask for them to come into the ground and finish 7th.
I also think the step up now from sort of 12th to 13th in the Premier League to the top 5 in the Championship has that margin is maybe for the first time last year has decreased. I mean, look at the
closed a
talent
little
that
bit,
Fulham are bringing in.
Yeah, crazy.
Andre Schürrle, Seri. There was one other person whose name escapes me now, but they under Jukanovic, they're more than capable of surprising a few people as well. So we're saying Burnley are going to slip. Who's going to be the surprise package?
Yeah, we'll say
Let's all
Wolves.
agree.
Let's just not agree they're going to go
I think Wolves are going to be a solid mid-table
10th.
side. But
Yeah.
like when we talk about how amazing their squad is, we mean like it's a fantastic mid-table side.
Yeah, for their level.
For a promoted club, it's unbelievable. But do we think that they're going to be like smashing Everton's doors in this season? No, I don't think they are.
Everton could be an interesting one. A lot of resources. Finally, a manager who, well, is going to play the sort of football Everton fans want to see. And I was going to say his recruitment has been good so far, but the whole Richarlison thing we've not actually spoke about across Sunday Vibes and Continental.
Oh, yeah.
Let's have a
And
chat
we
about it
said,
now.
we said we were going to. Why not make Continental Club 40 minutes
Let's
long
have a
as well,
chat
like
about
Sunday
Richarlison now. What are our thoughts on it?
Richarlison.
I like this move. I like this move a lot.
15 million too much.
I don't even think it's that much. I think it might be 5 to 10.
Did the fee finish on what? It was 40, wasn't it?
50, pretty much.
Oh, if it's 40, I think it's exactly value.
40 with add-ons.
I am a big fan of.
So let's say 50.
I think
Okay,
Richarlison is a fantastic player. We talked about him last season.
I think we're all fans, aren't we?
Huge fans.
We all see the potential.
Can play in a number of different roles in that forward area, something that Everton were crying out for last season, with some pace on the flanks, especially given Yannick Bolassi's shocking injury he had last season. I can't wait to see a forward line with Yannick Bolasie and Richarlison but in it. So I'm excited about that. Whether or not he works with Tosin up front or whether or not he plays as a striker, I'm not sure how Marco Silva's going to deploy him, is what I'm saying in this role. Do you guys think he's going to be as a winger or as an out-and-out?
Yeah, I'd say a winger.
I mean, it's kind of as an inside forward. I think that was how he was used at Watford.
But he was
right?
on that left-hand side.
He was playing wide, but
Where Yannick's playing.
But his role was to get into the box rather than to like beat a man on the dribble and cross.
Not sure about Yannick's future.
Like he's
Really? I don't know. I think Yannick Bolasie will be
has
fairly
obvious qualities,
strong
but I
mainstay.
think Richarlison is a huge upgrade on what they have currently. Is my
not
feeling.
a fan of Bolasie.
I think Everton were always going to have to overpay because of the whole Marco Silva situation. We've kind of delved into that before. It's supposed to be, both clubs coming to some sort of drawing a line in the sand, so to speak. I think if you're Everton, you overspend, and you have to overspend anyway because they are very cash rich now with the new owners. People know, similar to Leicester asking for 65 for Harry Maguire and 70 for Mahrez. Richarlison, when in comparatively speaking, not tremendously bad value.
No, let's face it as well, it's a much better piece of value than Gylfi Sigurdsson was 12 months ago.
But also, when you look at the market, like it's weird the way that some people think of some moves as like perfectly good value and others as really expensive. So, for instance, Barcelona spent 40 million on Arthur, who's pretty much unknown quantity. Man United have spent 50 on Fred. This is an awful lot of money, whereas Richarlison has incredible baseline numbers for a young player. This is his first season in the big league. He scored 5 goals against an expected total of 12. He got 4 assists. If he'd scored at his expected goals rate, I don't think anyone would question this. If he got 12 goals, 4 assists. And realistically, you'd rather sign that player who is getting into those positions and has had one season. You assume that maybe his finishing will rebound, rather than assuming this is just the player he is, where he's going to underperform. No one really underperforms by 7 expected goals every season. Like, that's not a thing that happens. Those are quite rare abilities. Shots inside. He was getting 9 touches inside the box last season. That's like elite striker levels. He was getting 3 shots off. Yeah. He was leading Watford.
From an analytical point of view,
and he had bad teammates.
We do like it. And he scored what? He contributed to 9 goals. Did you just say? And I think Watford only scored in the region of 40 anyway. So this was a goal-shy Watford. So talking about his output isn't generally going to be the most helpful thing when Watford dropped off after December massively, didn't they? And I think he did as well. I don't think he contributed to a goal after December. But
I think that coincided as well, sorry to interrupt you, with Marco Silva leaving the club. I think he was actually at his best under Marco Silva, Richarlison. So I think if Marco Silva has seen something, which he clearly has whilst working at Watford, then he has every right to demand that Everton go out and splash big bucks on a player that he clearly thinks is going to go on to become a potential superstar of European football.
Yeah. What they need to do, Everton, is balancing that side out and start offloading some of that forward talent as well, which they've done with Davy Klaassen. I think he's gone to Werder Bremen today. I think, Sandro wasn't. He was a gamble worth taking, and it cost 5 to 8.
Yeah, it cost
and he performed reasonably well at Valencia.
Rooney's gone.
Rooney's gone. So they are clearing house, aren't they? And this is a positive start. I just think there's better value elsewhere. If you can get Leon Bailey for 40 to 50, which is the fee being reported, then I think that shows you there's maybe better value than Richarlison in the Bundesliga. If you can get Julian Brandt for around 40, I think maybe he's a more complete player as well. But I still like it. So not overly fussed. Should we go into personal questions now?
Go on then, let's do a quick
one because we have jabbered on. Right, we've picked one. I found one. It is from @Wilkes134. If you guys were wrestlers, what ring names would you give each other? Just before we dive into the M board then. And mine's already been selected. It's got to be Hamill the Animal. So.
Give each other, mate. You can't give it to yourself.
Tick, I just did.
Hmm.
The Pat Attack.
Yeah,
Pat Attack's
sure.
pretty good.
Is that how the names work?
No, I think
have
it's
to
meant to
rhyme.
be like Chris the Animal Hamill.
No, that's a darts name.
Captain Copperbottom.
Is it?
That's your darts name. Stupid.
Yeah, and on that bombshell, let's just stop the show because it's been going on for quite some time. This room is hot, and we have began to lose our minds.
You
Guys.
sounded so like Jeremy Clarkson there.
Yes, and on that bombshell, what else should people be watching across Football Daily and Euro Football Daily right now? FDFC as well. Joseph, any suggestions?
Star Wars: The Champions.
The 12th man.